So welcome to another video from the Beehive Mindfulness School. Um, Today's motto is "Shame is my ground," and I use mottos to help me in my practice and in my awareness. So we've done videos on other ones like "Anger is my boundary," "Envy is my compass," but today is "Shame is my ground." So shame invites me to my ground, and one of my favorite words, I suppose, these days is the word defeat, which is very much synonymous with failure, but I prefer the word defeat. As the Buddhists would say, we have the potential for our defeat in everything that we do. And it's always better to go willingly to accept our defeat rather than to be dragged into to the ground unwillingly. So when we are defeated in something, it invites us to our ground again. And often there's a shame, or can be a shame around that, either in the experience or a legacy of shame from failure and defeat in the past. But the key is to recognize that shame invites me to my ground. And in many ways, I always loved the idea that humiliation comes from the Greek word homos, and homos and humiliation have the same root, which is ground, which is ground. And of course, Teresa of Avila, the wonderful Christian mystic, would say in her first Mansion of the Soul, where we meet the fear of humiliation, the antidote is humility, the surrender to what is, to letting go of our ego self. So in my life, as the Buddhists would say, there's always, in all our lives, there's always the potential for defeat. I know myself, as a parent, I'm defeated often in my marriage, in my work, in all aspects of my life. That potential is there. And it happens at times. I feel defeated, that no matter how hard I may try, I'm not successful in what I do or what I'm trying to do. And in that moment, I've begun to recognize more and more the invitation to go to my ground, to go back down to my ground, or as somebody said recently, back to the drawing board. But as you know, as I go back in that moment, if I can consciously do it, I embrace the shame or the feelings that go with that. And as I go back down to my ground, of course, psychologically, I'm going back through the different parts of myself. My psychological ground invites me to meet the young adult self, the teenage self, the inner child, almost back to the womb, and dare I say, even beyond, back to spirit. So really being defeated has become such a positive awareness in my life and in my practice over the last while, because I recognize its value, and I surrender to it now. I surrender to the invitation when it does happen. And sometimes there's grief that comes with it. Sometimes there's shame that comes with it. But ultimately, by consciously going to my ground, I am taking that time and attentiveness. It's such a relief. It is such a relief. And it's quite countercultural, because our culture is all about staying up, not being defeated, fighting, winning the war, winning the battle, pushing all the time. We have to be up. And that's not the mindful or spiritual way. So isn't it wonderful that at a certain point in our practice, we have the resources, the courage perhaps, and the awareness to accept our defeat in whatever the circumstances are, to surrender to it, to be open to its invitation to go to our ground with humility in the face of possible humiliation, which is the ego surrender ultimately. And when we come to our ground, That's where the self-care can happen. That's where you know, we reconnect into the deeper self, into our roots. You know, that's where we nurture ourselves and regulate ourselves again, so that when we're ready, we can rise up after going to the back to the drawing board, as one person said. When we're ready, we can rise back up again, feeling more confident and renewed and present and available, perhaps with new insight and new direction, and so on. So it is a process, and it's a natural, normal process to be defeated. It's I invite defeat now. Ironically, I celebrate defeat. Before I was afraid of defeat. It was too shameful. Failure, defeat, feeling like I wasn't good enough. It all fed into a negative, shame-based identity that I had. And for many people, it's the same. Now I invite defeat. I invite it into every aspect of my life, and I listen to it. And when it asks me to go to my ground, I go willingly. I go willingly. And what a wonderful experience it has become, because oftentimes I will meet parts of myself on that downward journey, like the inner teenager, especially for me, that needs attention, that needs reassurance, that needs perhaps healing around some of the shame he felt at his stage and time in life that never got dealt with or released. So there's great opportunity to come to our ground as a healing process. And I always find, it really, really does take so much stress and pressure off me when I'm not fighting all the time to stay up, to succeed, to win, which is so much part of our culture these days. And it's like, no, I surrender to this moment. I surrender to my defeat. I welcome it. Defeat me, bring me to my ground, and then build me up again. So I hope this sharing can bring you some awareness and can ease your suffering, and bring you another motto from the Beehive School. Thank you.